Winter of 1981-82, known as the Big Snow of 1982, wasn't just cold, it was 7 weeks that tested Britain like nothing since the legendary winter of 1963. Ice formed on the inside of windows. Families slept under 4 blankets in rooms that felt like freezers. Elderly people died in their beds from hypothermia despite being indoors. On January 10, 1982, temperatures hit minus 27.2 degrees Celsius at Braemar in Scotland and minus 26.1 in England, records that still stand today, over 40 years later. Villages disappeared under snowdrifts taller than houses. Roads became impassable ice tunnels. The army was called in to deliver bread and milk by helicopter. Strangers with Land Rovers became overnight heroes, rescuing stranded motorists and ferrying nurses to hospitals. When the sea itself started freezing off the Welsh coast, something not seen in living memory, people realized this was something they'd never forget. For 7 brutal weeks from mid-December 1981 through January 1982, Britain was gripped by the most severe winter in nearly 2 decades. The country ground to a halt. Schools closed for weeks, businesses shut down, entire communities were cut off, water pipes froze and burst, power cuts left people in freezing darkness, the death toll climbed into the hundreds. This is the story of the winter that froze Britain, when snow fell for weeks on end, when temperatures dropped to Siberian levels, when the nation's infrastructure collapsed under the weight of ice and snow, and when ordinary people showed extraordinary resilience in the face of nature's fury. This is the story of the Big Snow of 1982 and the people who survived it. Part 1. The Winter Arrives, December 1981. Britain's winter history. Britain's weather is normally mild and wet, moderated by the Gulf Stream bringing warm water from the tropics. Severe winters are rare but memorable. The legendary winters. 1947, the worst winter of the 20th century. 3 months of snow and freezing temperatures, fuel crisis, food shortages. 1963, the Big Freeze, one of the coldest winters on record, lasted from December 1962 through March 1963. The sea froze, snow lay for months. 1978 to 79, the Winter of Discontent, heavy snow combined with strikes and political crisis. By 1981, it had been nearly 2 decades since 1963. An entire generation had grown up without experiencing a truly severe winter. December 1981, the cold begins. The autumn of 1981 was normal, mild even. But in early December, the weather pattern changed dramatically. Mid-December 1981, high pressure settled over Scandinavia. This blocked the normal mild westerly winds from the Atlantic. Instead, winds came from the east and northeast, bringing bitterly cold air directly from Siberia. Temperatures plummeted. By December 8th to 10th, 1981, heavy snow began falling across much of Britain, starting in the east and spreading west, temperatures dropping well below freezing. The snow kept coming and coming and coming. December 12th to 13th, 1981, the first major snowfall. A major snowstorm hit. Heavy snow across England, Wales, and southern Scotland, some areas receiving 30 centimeters or 12 inches in 24 hours. Roads blocked, trains canceled, schools closed. But this was just the beginning. The pattern establishes the meteorological setup that would dominate for 7 weeks. Persistent high pressure over northern Europe, blocking pattern preventing mild Atlantic air from reaching Britain, continuous flow of Arctic and Siberian air, Regular snow showers, especially on the East Coast, temperatures staying below freezing day and night for weeks. This pattern became locked in place and wouldn't break until late January. Christmas 1981. Christmas Day 1981 was bitterly cold. Snow on the ground across most of the country, temperatures well below freezing. Many people spent Christmas in homes that were barely heated, fuel expensive, some cut off by snow. A white Christmas, but not the romantic kind. This was harsh, dangerous cold. Late December. As December ended, the cold intensified further. More snow fell, drifts building higher, roads blocked, some communities already cut off. This was becoming serious. And then came January 1982, and the bottom fell out of the thermometer. Part 2. January 1982, the deep freeze. January 1 to 10, 1982, the coldest period. The first 10 days of January 1982 were extraordinarily cold, some of the coldest temperatures ever recorded in Britain. January 10, 1982, the record. The coldest day of the winter and one of the coldest ever recorded in Britain. Scotland, Braemar, Aberdeenshire, minus 27.2 degrees Celsius, minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the lowest temperature ever reliably recorded in the UK, tied with 1895 and 1995 records. The village essentially frozen solid. England, Newport, Shropshire, minus 26.1 degrees Celsius, minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The coldest temperature ever recorded in England. This record still stands today. Wales, widespread temperatures below minus 20 degrees Celsius. These weren't just cold, these were Siberian, Arctic temperatures in Britain. What these temperatures mean. At minus 20 degrees Celsius to minus 27 degrees Celsius, any exposed skin can get frostbite within minutes. Hypothermia risk is extreme. Unheated buildings become dangerously cold inside. Water freezes instantly. Car engines won't start. Metal becomes brittle. Life-threatening conditions. The nightly cold. It wasn't just one day. Night after night, temperatures dropped to minus 15 degrees Celsius, minus 20 degrees Celsius, minus 25 degrees Celsius for over a week. This was unprecedented, sustained cold. Buildings couldn't retain heat, heating systems failing or inadequate. Fuel supplies ran low. The impact on daily life. Homes, ice forming on the inside of windows, condensation freezing, frost on interior walls, pipes freezing and bursting, massive damage, heating systems failing or inadequate, people sleeping in coats under multiple blankets, some burning furniture to stay warm. Elderly and vulnerable. Many elderly people living alone, inadequate heating, couldn't afford fuel or heating insufficient, hypothermia deaths mounting, some found dead in their homes, frozen. Water. The water crisis. Pipes frozen throughout the country. No running water for days or weeks. Standpipes set up in streets. People carrying buckets of water. When pipes thawed, burst pipes flooded homes. Catastrophic damage. The continued snow. Throughout January, more snow fell. Regular snow showers from the east, accumulating on already deep snow, drifts growing higher and higher. Some areas had snow cover over 1 meter, 3+ feet deep, drifts 3 to 6 meters, 10 to 20 feet high. Part 3. Cut off, isolated communities. The snow drifts. What made this winter particularly devastating was the drifting. Strong easterly winds, blowing snow into enormous drifts. Drifts 3 to 6 meters, 10 to 20 feet were common. Some drifts taller than houses, completely blocking roads, burying vehicles, creating walls of snow. Rural communities isolated. Across Britain, particularly in upland and rural areas, entire communities were cut off. Scotland, Highland villages isolated for weeks, roads impassable, no deliveries, no way in or out. Wales, mountain communities cut off, valleys blocked by drifts, Snowdonia region particularly hard hit. Northern England, Pennines, Yorkshire Dales, Lake District, villages isolated, farms cut off, livestock dying. Southwest England, even Devon and Cornwall, normally mild, hit by heavy snow. Dartmoor communities cut off. Specific examples: Dent, Cumbria, isolated for nearly 2 weeks, no road access, food and supplies running low, relying on what was stored locally. Villages in the Brecon Beacons, Wales, cut off for over a week. One village had no fresh food for 10 days. Army helicopters eventually delivered supplies. Scottish Highland communities, some cut off for 3 weeks, completely reliant on helicopter drops, no postal service, no deliveries, no access. The stories: farmers, struggling to reach and feed livestock, sheep buried in drifts, some died, some survived in snow caves, cattle trapped in barns, walking miles through chest-deep snow to reach animals. Expectant mothers, women going into labor in cut-off villages, helicopter evacuations in terrible conditions, some babies born at home with only neighbors to help. Medical emergencies, people needing dialysis, medications, urgent care, cut off from hospitals, helicopters attempting rescues in blizzards, some didn't make it. Part 4. The transport chaos. Roads. Britain's road network essentially collapsed. Major roads blocked. M62, Trans-Pennine Motorway, closed repeatedly. A1, M1 severely affected. Scottish roads blocked for weeks. Even main roads became impassable. The drifts. Snowplows couldn't keep up. As soon as roads were cleared, drifts formed again. Some roads had snow walls 3 to 4 meters high on each side. Ice tunnels where plows had cut through. Stranded motorists. Throughout the winter, people were trapped in their cars, on motorways, on country roads, in blizzards with zero visibility, some for hours, some overnight. Hypothermia risk extreme. The rescuers. Local people with Land Rovers, tractors, driving through appalling conditions, finding and rescuing stranded motorists, taking them to homes, pubs, community centers. Ordinary people becoming heroes. Rail. The rail network struggled. Frozen points, track switches, snow blocking lines, trains canceled. Some services completely suspended. Passengers stranded at stations. Notable incidents: trains stuck in snowdrifts, passengers spending night on frozen trains, rescuers digging through drifts to reach trains. Air. Airports. Heathrow repeatedly closed. Regional airports shut for days. Ice on runways. Visibility zero in snow showers. Britain isolated from the world. Part 5. The humanitarian response. The Army called in. By early January 1982, the situation was so severe the government called in the military. Operation Snowdrop, informal name. Army deployed to assist, bringing resources, vehicles, helicopters, manpower, working with local authorities. The Army's tasks: 1. Helicopter deliveries. RAF and Army helicopters, delivering food, medicine, and fuel to cut-off communities, bread, milk, essential supplies, landing in village squares, fields, anywhere possible. 2. Clearing roads. Army vehicles and personnel, working with civilian snowplows, clearing priority routes, digging out stranded vehicles. 3. Medical evacuations. Evacuating sick and injured from isolated areas. Emergency childbirth evacuations, dialysis patients, life-saving missions. 4. Delivering fuel, heating oil and coal to the elderly and vulnerable, preventing hypothermia deaths. Volunteers. Throughout Britain, ordinary people stepped up. Land Rover and tractor owners became volunteer rescue services, pulling cars from drifts, ferrying nurses to hospitals, delivering food to isolated elderly, working around the clock. Community spirit. Neighbors checking on neighbors, sharing food and fuel, opening homes to stranded travelers, villages organizing themselves. Specific heroes. Farmers with tractors became lifelines for communities, clearing roads, delivering supplies, rescuing people. Four-wheel drive owners, ferrying doctors and nurses to work, taking pregnant women to hospitals, delivering prescriptions to housebound elderly. Unpaid, voluntary, essential. The snow wardens. Some communities appointed snow wardens, responsible for checking on vulnerable residents, organizing local responses, coordinating with authorities. Part 6. The Frozen Sea. The sea freezing. One of the most extraordinary aspects of the winter of 1982 was the sea freezing, something not seen in British known memory. Cardigan Bay, Wales. The sea began to freeze, ice forming along the coast, extending out from shore. First time since 1963. The North Sea. Ice floes forming, harbors freezing, ships stuck, fishing vessels unable to operate. Why this was remarkable? The sea rarely freezes in Britain. Salt water freezes at lower temperatures than fresh water, around -2 degrees Celsius. Ocean currents normally prevent freezing. Britain's maritime climate usually keeps coastal areas mild. For the sea to freeze requires extreme, sustained cold. The sight was surreal. Beaches covered in ice, waves frozen in mid-motion, ice extending into the sea. People walked on the frozen water, an alien landscape. The ecological impact. Marine life, fish kills, fish unable to survive extreme cold, seabirds dying, food sources frozen, birds too cold, damage to coastal ecosystems. Part 7. The death toll and suffering. The human cost. Exact death toll is debated, but estimates suggest several hundred excess deaths during the winter of 1981-82. How people died. 1. Hypothermia. Elderly people in inadequately heated homes. Found dead in their beds or armchairs. Indoor temperatures dropping below safe levels. Some couldn't afford heating, some cut off from fuel deliveries. 2. Heart attacks and strokes. Cold stress on the cardiovascular system. Shoveling snow triggering heart attacks. The elderly particularly vulnerable. 3. Accidents. Car crashes on ice. Falls on ice, broken hips, head injuries. Falling through ice. Hypothermia after getting lost in blizzards. 4. Indirect deaths. Medical emergencies unable to reach hospitals. Delayed emergency response due to conditions. Inability to get medications. The homeless. Homeless people were at extreme risk, sleeping rough in -20 degrees centigrade temperatures. Shelters overwhelmed. Many died. Exact numbers unknown. The elderly. Older people suffered disproportionately. Living alone, fixed incomes, couldn't afford extra heating, afraid to waste fuel. Some too proud to ask for help. Hypothermia setting in gradually, dying alone in cold homes. Hypothermia deaths. A particular tragedy, people dying of cold inside their homes, temperatures indoors dropping to near freezing, gradual onset of hypothermia, victim becoming confused, lethargic, lying down to rest, never waking up. Public health crisis. The NHS struggled, hospitals overwhelmed, hypothermia cases, falls and fractures from ice, heart attacks and strokes, staff unable to get to work, roads blocked, some hospitals running on skeleton crews. Part 8. The long wait for spring. Mid-January, no end in sight. By mid-January 1982, the cold had lasted over a month, no sign of it ending, people exhausted, resources depleted, morale low. Late January, the pattern breaks. Around January 20 to 25, 1982, the high pressure over Scandinavia finally weakened. Milder Atlantic air began to reach Britain. Temperatures rose above freezing. The deep freeze ended. But this created new problems. The thaw. When temperatures rose above freezing, floods. All that snow and ice melted rapidly. Rivers overflowed, flooding in low-lying areas. Some areas that had been frozen were now flooded. Burst pipes. Pipes that had frozen now thawed. Burst pipes releasing water. Homes flooded. Massive damage. Insurance claims in the millions. The damage revealed. As snow melted, the damage became visible. Buildings damaged by snow weight. Roofs collapsed. Structural damage. Roads broken up by freeze-thaw cycles. Potholes everywhere. Late January, early February, Britain recovered. Gradually, life returned to normal. Schools reopened, transport resumed, isolated communities reconnected. But the recovery would take months. Part 9. The legacy and lessons. The cost. Economic cost. Billions in damage, 1982 money, lost productivity, infrastructure damage, insurance claims, agriculture losses, livestock deaths, crop damage. Social cost. Hundreds dead, thousands injured, psychological impact, communities traumatized. What Britain learned. 1. Emergency preparedness. Better winter emergency plans developed, improved coordination between agencies, strategic salt and grit stockpiles increased. Vulnerable people. Better systems for checking on the elderly, cold weather payments introduced for pensioners, fuel poverty awareness. Infrastructure. Recognition that infrastructure vulnerable to extreme weather, need for resilience. What hasn't changed? Despite the lessons, Britain still struggles with snow, transport still disrupted by relatively mild winters. The wrong kind of snow has become a meme. The 1982 winter faded from public memory. Many people today have never experienced such a winter. The generation that remembers. For those who lived through it, indelible memories, stories told to children and grandchildren. You think this is cold? Let me tell you about 1982. Pride in having survived, community spirit remembered fondly. Climate change context. Since 1982, Britain's winters have generally become milder. Severe winters like 1982 now extremely rare. Climate change reducing the likelihood of such events, but also increasing the likelihood of extreme weather of other kinds. Could it happen again? Meteorologically, yes, but unlikely. The specific weather pattern that caused 1982 could recur, but is rare, climate change making it less likely, but never impossible. If it did happen, modern Britain might cope better, with better forecasting, more resources, or might cope worse, less prepared, infrastructure not designed for it. Conclusion. The winter of 1981 to 1982, the Big Snow, was 7 weeks that tested Britain like nothing since 1963. From mid-December 1981 through late January 1982, Britain was gripped by extraordinary cold. Temperatures dropped to minus 27.2 degrees centigrade in Scotland, minus 26.1 degrees centigrade in England, records that still stand. Heavy snow fell for weeks, drifts grew taller than houses, villages disappeared under the snow. Communities were cut off for weeks, roads became impassable, the army delivered bread and milk by helicopter. Strangers with Land Rovers became heroes, rescuing the stranded and helping the vulnerable. The sea froze off the Welsh coast, pipes burst in millions of homes, ice formed on the inside of windows. Families slept under 4 blankets in rooms that felt like freezers. Hundreds of people died, most of them elderly, freezing to death in their own homes despite being indoors. For 7 weeks, Britain was frozen, and then in late January, the pattern broke. The thaw came, the snow melted, life returned to normal. But those who lived through it never forgot. The winter of 1981 to 1982, the Big Snow, showed nature's power over modern society, how quickly normal life can collapse, the vulnerability of the elderly and poor, the importance of community and neighbors, human resilience and kindness in crisis. For those who were there, the memory of the cold remains vivid, the pride in having survived, the gratitude for those who helped, the knowledge that they survived Britain's worst winter in nearly 2 decades. The winter of 1981 to 1982, when Britain froze, when communities rallied, when hundreds died, but thousands survived through determination and mutual aid. 7 weeks that tested a nation, 7 weeks that are now history, 7 weeks that those who lived through them will never forget. The Big Snow of 1982, Britain's frozen winter, and the people who survived it. The Fear Files posts videos covering the true stories behind some of history's greatest disasters and extreme events. The channel is made YouTube channel members. Huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel. If you found this documentary moving, please like and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes this content possible.